just like to make a remark, and well, there was supposed to be a photograph today, but I think unless we've all brought swimming trunks, it will be impossible. So it's been postponed for, I think, Thursday, hopefully. We wait for the weather to clear. And also about the dinner, people wishing to attend the dinner could please tell Sueli before lunchtime today. Okay, thank you.
So, bom dia, tudo bem? So let's start today's session. First speaker is Professor Cano from Spain. His title is Desingularization of Vector Field Perspectives.
Thank you. Bueno, yo creo que es obligado decir unas palabras en el idioma de César Camacho. Algunas personas incluso me habían dicho que dijera toda la conferencia en el idioma de César Camacho. Yo creo que se entendería igual. A los españoles nos gusta mucho, por otro lado, el inglés de César Camacho, también hay que decirlo. Solamente voy a hacer la presentación. La razón por la cual elegí este título es porque es lo único que sé hacer en matemáticas, pero también es porque es clave en el primer contacto científico que tuve con César y con Pablo Sad en Trieste, que me gustaría comentar. Yo era joven, muy impetuoso, acababa de terminar la tesis, que me parecía muy difícil y muy importante, me había costado mucho trabajo, y entonces voy a Trieste a una conferencia que daba Pablo Sad. Mi tesis era algo sobre la reducción de singularidades de campos de vectores. Y entonces el título de la conferencia era una demostración fácil de la reducción de singularidades de campos de vectores. Fácil means easy. Easy proof of. Pero era mi tesis y era muy difícil, entonces realmente reaccioné. No sabía ni quién era Pablo Sad, ni quién era César Camacho. Les fui a buscar quiénes son. Entonces empecé a descubrir a Pablo, que estaba con César, y yo pensaba que hablaba con un tambor, hacía boom, boom, no entendía nada. Finalmente, cuando fui adecuando el oído al acento, me dijo que era un caso sencillo de la reducción de singularidades. Y allí comenzó una colaboración hace 16, 17 años, que ha sido realmente muy importante para el equipo de Valladolid, que yo quiero agradecer aquí y que yo creo que sigue siendo muy importante para el equipo de Valladolid. Por eso voy a hablar de este tema. En este tema, entonces, habrá cosas antiguas y cosas nuevas. Las transparencias están escritas en mal inglés y yo voy a intentar de decirlo también en mal inglés, con algunas palabras en español. Bueno, ahí. Oh. Bueno, está bien. This is the title and the starting result on reduction of singularities of vector fields. It is a result which has been completely proved by Seidenberg around 68 in dimension 2, ambient space of dimension 2, with a proof which is valid for the real or complex analytic case. This statement is the following one. You take an ambient space of dimension 2. There you have a vector field, and you have a singularity. You can transform the space by a blowing up of a point, bloop, and the space becomes bigger. Ese dibujo que parece una semiesfera es patente brasileña. Then the point becomes an exceptional divisor which substitutes the directions of approximation to the point, and you can repeat. And repeating finitely many times, finally you get that the singularities of the transformed vector field, if you want the foliation, are just simple singularities. Then simple means that they are elementary, that is a linear part which is non-nilpotent. If you want, the vector field is non-nilpotent, and also with a condition of non-resonance for the eigenvalues, like that. For instance, a radial vector field has eigenvalues 1, 1, and you can destroy a radial vector field by a blowing up, because you are the rays, you blow up, and you get just non-singular foliation transversal to the exceptional divisor. That is why Seidenberg arrives to this non-resonance condition. There are two extensions of this result in dimension 2 to the C infinity case from Dumortier, I think. And another result which was important for me is to the case of characteristic P in algebraic geometry. It has been done by Jean Giraud, and it was a step in the reduction of singularities of a surface following Young method. This is also an open problem, still without complete solution. Well, this is one. There are 16. We are interested in vector fields and not in differential forms, and try to do a result in higher dimension. The first remark is that there is no hope to kill the resonances in a global way in dimension 3. Here you have a vector field. In fact, it is a family of vector fields which is tangent to Z equal constant. And at each level of Z, Z is exactly the eigenvalue, 1 Z. So you have many eigenvalues having resonances. And the singular locus contains the vertical axis. You need to transform it necessarily because it contains infinitely many points with resonances. If you transform this axis, you take it as a center. On the right-hand side, you can write what is the expression of the transformed vector field. The new eigenvalue is Z minus 1. Of course, over each fixed point, you kill the resonancy, but you are not able to kill all the resonances at the same time by a finite number of steps. This is a first obstruction to get a global result in dimension 3 or higher. We can do a conjecture like that. Why not? I think that people believe that this conjecture will be interesting. In dimension 3, we look for getting elementary singularities after a finite number of global blowing-ups of the ambient space. I have written down also quasi-elementary, but I am not going to speak about that. Elementary means essentially non-nilpotent linear part. Maybe it is not absolutely possible to get just non-nilpotent linear part, but it is quite technical, and I'm not going to speak about that. So, what about this conjecture? Results around this conjecture. We have in this talk 3 parts. First part, all results. Second part, one recent result. Third part, a result in progress. We are still in the first part. This was my thesis that started this relationship with Paulo Sad and César Camacho. And I'm going to explain what is the statement. What is the formal Hironaka's game in dimension 3 in our case? Well, here I can stop a little bit. Jean-Paul have said to me that Hironaka has had the Légion d'honneur. Yeah. Okay, announcement. I continue. You take an ambient space in dimension 3, a vector field. You consider this in a formal way. This means that the coefficients of the vector field are just formal series, and your ambient space is just given by a formal consideration of the functions. You have 2 players, A and B. The player A will choose an invariant center, which is formal. Then the referee do the blowing up with this center. And the player B, the bad one, the red one, will choose a point over P. So you transform the thing. If the transformed vector field is elementary of P prime, then the player A wins. Otherwise, the play restart at P prime. We take a formal situation at P prime and we continue another step. Of course, the player B never wins. The only hope of the player B is to impedir the fact that A can win. So the result of my thesis was that there is a winning strategy for the player A. Since I worked very much time on this result, I can do 2 transparencies for saying the same thing. So this is the same thing. So here you have the point P. The player A chooses the center Y, which is a formal center. You blow up the center, and the player B will choose a point over the point P, and we restart at the point P prime. There are two negative things about these results and one positive thing. The two negative things there are that first, the centers are maybe formal non-convergent. This is possible. Second thing is that, of course, the statement is not at all a global statement. Anyway, one positive thing is that the strategy is done without knowing the future behavior of the player B. For instance, if you have a knowledge of the behavior of B, you can make a prevision and prepare the things in order to control the future behavior of the player B. This is typically the thing that arrives when you are looking singularities, for instance, following a valuation, because you are supposed to know what is this valuation. This was a very local result. Let us mention a global result which is valid in any dimension. This was the result in a collaboration with César Camacho and Paulo Sad. So, if one look to the initial Seidenberg proof, essentially it considers the intersection index of the coefficients of the vector field. After this intersection index was called the Milnor number of the vector field. So essentially, Seidenberg uses the control of the Milnor number of the vector field by blowing up in order to prove that you can do the global reduction of singularities in dimension 2. After this number was used in a more systematic way by Alcides Lins Neto, César Camacho and Paulo Sad in another paper. And this was the starting point for a generalization to higher dimension. So in higher dimension, a singularity of vector field is said to be absolutely isolated if, first of all, it is an isolated singularity, and second, if you blow up the singularity, the new singularities that appear are also isolated singularities, and so on. So, by doing a control of the various Milnor numbers that you can define when you are in the situation of an absolutely isolated singularity, you can prove that by a finite number of blowing ups, you get elementary singularities. There is a quite recent extension of this result by a Spanish mathematician in Salamanca, which is called Fernando Sancho, with essentially the same arguments, that gives a generic reduction of singularities in the case that the dimension of the singular locus is not increasing. What this means? if the dimension of this singular locus is not increasing when you blow up, of course you can. No, excuse me, not decreasing. So it can be bigger, but not smaller. So you can assume anyway that it is always the same dimension. So your singular locus will have a generic point. You blow your singular locus. You can forget about singular points of the singular locus, no problem with that. You blow up the singular locus, and the statement is the same one. In a generic point of the singular locus, the singularity is just an elementary singularity. A particular case of this is what is called equireduction. We have used often this statement of equireduction. Assume you are working dimension 3 and that your singular locus is one line. Then you can forget about finitely many points in this line, try to blow the line, and ask yourself if by blowing the line, finally you get a reduced elementary singularity. Of course, if one takes a transversal section of the line by a generic behavior, it should be a problem of essential dimension 2. It's not so easy with a vector field. This result is easier with co-dimension 1 foliation because you can really cut by dimension 2. Here you should have to project or to look at the longitudinal part of the vector field and the transversal part of the vector field, but the result is indeed also true. Okay, I think that it's not reasonable to speak about results that have 10 years or more in a conference, because at least in Spain, a paper of more than 10 years does not exist. So let us speak part 2 about a recent result not still published. Non-oscillating integral curves and valuation. In fact, it is a result of the type of local uniformization in the spirit of Zariski. We have been very careful. When I say we mean Robert Moussu and Jean-Philippe Rollin. We have been very careful to be sure that the centers of transformation are always of the same nature as the ambient space. This means we are working with convergent centers. This result is not for attacking the general problem of reduction singularities, but it was done for the study of trajectories of vector fields that are oscillating or that are noted, asymptotically noted. But it is an independent result of, in the spirit of the local uniformization of Zariski. Let us explain it. So we are in the real case, in dimension 3. We have a real analytic vector field, a non-oscillating integral curve of it, that arrive just to a point P. So in the picture, on the left-hand side, we have an oscillating curve, and on the right-hand side, a non-oscillating curve. So we are just considering a non-oscillating one. To be oscillating means to be oscillating with respect to an analytic surface or semi-analytic surface or even subanalytic. So the first remark, when you have this non-oscillating integral curve, is that the following one. By doing a Broyne-up with a convergent invariant center, or also by doing a ramification with respect to a coordinate, you can lift your curve. Of course, the curve will be transcendent enough for avoiding the fact that it is contained in a hypersurface. And the lifted curve accumulates at a single point, P tilde. So the curve is like the player B. The curve small gamma chooses this point P tilde. Here you have a proof of the remark. Of course, this is a work with Moussu, but I am there also, and the proof must be by contradiction. So this is a proof by contradiction. If by a Broyne-up you accumulate yourself at least 2 points, P1 tilde, P2 tilde, you can put a wall between these 2 points, like S tilde, that projects in an analytic way. This wall must be crossed because gamma tilde pass from P1 tilde to P2 tilde and so on. So this means that gamma was in fact an oscillating curve, and we are dealing with a non-oscillating integral curve of the vector field. So in fact, gamma tilde must to choose just one point P tilde after one transformation. So the theorem is the following one. Is that after a finite number of ramifications or Broyne-ups with convergent invariant centers, we get an elementary singularity at the accumulation point P tilde determined by the lifted curve gamma tilde in such a way that gamma tilde is an invariant, is an integral curve of a vector field, which is the lifted vector field, that has an elementary singularity at this point. So the singularity you are working with, in fact, it is elementary. So this is a reduction of singularities. Well, just an example to show just an example to show how you can have an non-oscillating integral curve which is not exactly an analytic curve. So in this example, this curve y equal to x power lambda, in the case lambda is not rational, this is of course an integral curve of a linear vector field where lambda is the eigenvalue, and it is non-oscillating. It is very easy to prove it, but it is never an analytic curve. How we can say that it is never an analytic curve? So have to work. So this is the singular point, and here we have the axis, and assume that our curve is like that, with lambda, for instance, bigger than 1. Of course, lambda is either bigger than 1 or smaller than 1, because it is not rational. So blow up. If we blow up, we get the exceptional divisor, the old axis, 2 corner points here, and the transformed curve. Since lambda is bigger than 1, the tangent is horizontal. So we get here the new curve like that. Horizontal means that it goes to the origin of the first card of the blowing up. And the new lambda is exactly lambda minus 1. But now, lambda prime in the picture is actually smaller than 1. So now we can blow up this new point to get something like that. Excuse me. This was blue. Here blue. Here it was blue. And the tangent is vertical. So since the tangent is vertical, we go to this corner. And the new lambda is over lambda prime minus 1, etc. In this way, you change the chart of the blowing up infinitely many times, following the continuous fraction expansion of the rational number lambda. But you are always working at the corners. This means that you are working in a way that respects the monomials in a way which can be called toroidal or combinatorial. And if you want, you are dealing with a plane curve that has a Puiseux pair of length infinity. You know that when you are reducing the singularities of a curve, you have pieces in the reduction of singularities which have this combinatorial behavior. And at one moment, the transformed curve is away from the corners. And at this time, the new curve has one Puiseux pair less. Finally, the curve is non-singular, and you don't change the corners. For instance, this curve can never follow the infinitely near points of a plane curve. Okay. Anyway, this behavior is good for the control of the singularities. The behavior which would be willed, not good, not smooth, is the corresponding behavior of having infinitely many number of Puiseux pairs. You can imagine this for a curve, but this does not exist for an integral curve of a vector field. This can be proved. I will say this in a moment. This can be proved by the method of Newton polygon of Puiseux. Okay. So an idea of the proof of this result. Of the theorem with Moussuet and Roland is to pass to valuations. Aroka spoke yesterday about valuations. Now we are going also to speak about valuations. First of all, Hardy fields. What is a Hardy field? A Hardy field is by definition a field with plus point product. Very important. Yes, a field, an ordinary field. You have 0, 1 plus product, where the elements are germs of functions, of real functions at the origin on the right hand side, or at the infinity, etc. This is not important. So since it is a field, when you have one element of this field which is not 0, you can do 1 over f. So this means that f is non-oscillating. So the fact that it is a field corresponds essentially to the non-oscillation property. Also, it is a field closed under the usual derivative. This is also important, but we are not going to speak. So when you have one field like that, you can construct the natural valuation. You say two elements of this field are equivalent if the limit of the quotient is a real number which is not 0 and not infinity. In a Hardy field, also because it is a field, any element has a limit.
But then the function is never 0 at 0? Or it can be 0?
No, they are not functions at 0. There are germs at 0, but on the right-hand side. They arrive asymptotically to 0. No, the value at 0 does not exist. So you can just speak about the limit going to 0. And in particular, any element also has a limit, because if one element has not a limit, it accumulates at 2 points. We are repeating the above argument. You consider the constant function. Well, a Hardy field always contains the constant functions between the two values, and this is an oscillating function, that element that cannot be inverted. Okay. So, doing this equivalence relation, we construct a group big gamma, and the natural map, it is in fact a valuation in the sense of Aroka, in the usual sense. And for this valuation, which is important, is that to have a positive valuation is the same thing as saying that the limit when you go to 0 is equal to 0. So this is important. Okay, this is a very abstract theory, very old also. And the new thing is that if you have an oscillating curve small gamma, you get a Hardy field. Just you can make a parametrization of small gamma by x, and you can do the substitution of the analytic functions, or the meromorphic functions, like that. One meromorphic function can be substituted, and you get f composed with gamma. The total result is in fact a Hardy field, because gamma is first non-oscillating and second an integral curve of a vector field. This is the part closed by differentiation. This Hardy field, like an ordinary field, when gamma is transcended enough, is isomorphic to the field of meromorphic functions. So this valuation is exactly the tool for doing the reduction of the singularities stated in the theorem. So, how to recognize the point P tilde chosen by gamma? It is exactly the point where the coordinates have positive valuation, because if you go to this point, the limit is 0 when you arrive there. This is exactly the mechanism of Zariski in Zariski uniformization results. So you can essentially try to repeat this mechanism. So you go to Zariski, Annals of Math, 1940 more or less, and you try to inspire yourself there. We have done that essentially. In fact, not. We have done that a posteriori after speaking with many French, that essentially. And okay, how we do the result? We do the result just by considering the ranks of the evaluation, and the ranks of the evaluations are of two types. First, the rank, the usual rank, is the number of Archimedean levels in the group big gamma, and the rational rank is the dimension, the rational dimension of this group. So that two invariants are stable, so you can assume that they are always the same one, and try to study each case with fixed pair of ranks. Each case has a behavior, but I have no time to explain how. I would like just to mention what is the key result that allows to prove the theorem. The key result, when you have evaluation like that and a Hardy field, you can try to do an asymptotic expansion of an element in terms of the other element. For instance, like that. And maybe you cannot do this asymptotic expansion, but sometimes you can do it. And if you can do it, it should be like a Puiseux series. But the exponents are very general. So the finiteness result is the following one. If you have an asymptotic expansion like that, then it is of Puiseux type, following a result of Jose Cano, Grigoriev, and Singer, in the sense that the exponents will belong to a finitely generated additive subsemigroup of the real numbers. And this is the corresponding property of having just finitely many Puiseux pairs. The proof uses the Newton polygon of differential equations, and it's less complicated than the reduction of singularities. So we go to the reduction of singularities by the Newton-Puiseux method. A remark is that if this key fact is true for evaluation, we can do the local uniformization through this valuation, and this will be true for any interesting valuation. Okay. So now we go to the third part. Looking for a global result. This is a work in progress with Daniel Panassolo. For the case of families of vector fields in dimension 3. So I'm going just to explain the statement to speak a little bit about the difficulties in the result. So we consider a real analytic vector field in dimension 3 that is tangent to the levels of a function. For instance, the function is z equal constant. So in this case, you have a family of vector fields because you have a vector field at each level of this function. Now we try to do a global reduction of singularities of this object, which is less general than an analytic vector field, of course. But just I speak of this to convince yourselves that it is not so easy. This statement will be that by a finite number of global blowing-ups of the ambient space with invariant centers, in order to respect the dynamics and to be able to do applications of the result, we get a new vector field. Of course, it is a family in the sense that it will be tangent to the levels of the corresponding transformation of f that has only elementary singularities. That is, singularities which have a non-nilpotent linear part. This is the statement. The Panazzolo thesis that is published in the Memoirs of AMS, it was, I don't remember very, but around 98, do this result and other results when you start with a vector field which is nilpotent but with non-null linear part. And it is quite complicated. It is 200, 300 pages just to pass from nilpotent to non-nilpotent when you start with nilpotent with non-null linear part. So I will just mention some ideas on the proof. Of course, when you are doing reduction of singularities, you need to use invariants. And the first invariant, which is not the best one, but it is the first, is the order of the coefficients of your vector field at the point you are considering. So we have to divide singular points in one of two types. One type, once you have a fixed order, each what we call are hyperbolic singularities. And the other type, which is the difficult type, of course, is what we call the R nilpotent singularities. I'm not going to do a complete definition of the two types, but just to give an overview. The R hyperbolic singularities are typically these singularities that have a monomial like that z power to R ddz. Of course, if R is not equal to 1, we are not working with non-null eigenvalue, but a little bit like that. In fact, z equal to 0, in this case, is a surface that has an interesting geometrical behavior. It is a surface of contact, in the sense that when you blow up, the new bad points are located at the strict transform of Z equal to 0. To see how to do the definition, I am not going to do the definition, but you apply x to all the functions, and you get a result. If you apply x to Z, you get Z to the power R plus things of higher order. And then you look at the coordinates that are in this part of order R, and you reapply x to that. In this case, you say you find Z, you reapply x to Z, and the order is always R. This is more or less a way of the definition of R hyperbolic singularities. On the other hand, for the R nilpotent singularities, a typical example is a vector field that you write like that, with R nilpotent monomial YZ. It is like a Jordan block with 0 eigenvalues. Then you have this R nilpotent monomial there. You apply x to all the functions, and finally you recover just y. You reapply x to y, and the new order is higher. This means nilpotent. So you have the two types of singularities, hyperbolic, nilpotent. The definition does not matter with the family property. And in the case of R hyperbolic singularities, you can use the standard arguments in the reduction of singularities of surfaces. So what are the standard arguments? I don't know, but the arguments that when you want to do a reduction of singularities of a surface, you look at the papers of Hironaka, etc., and you find this kind of arguments. These arguments are of two types. First, a geometrical argument like the maximal contact theory of Aroca, Hironaka, Vicente, in the sense that you can find an object of maximal contact where you project your problem and you do a solution of the problem by induction on the ambient dimension. But also you have characters of the singularity that you will read always from the weighted initial parts. That is, you can draw a Newton polyhedra, and you look at the frontier of the Newton polyhedra for convenient coordinates, and you can pick up your interesting invariance from that. This means that you can control always in a linear superficial way your problem. This is what I mean the standard arguments, and these arguments can be applied to the case of R hyperbolic singularities, even without the family condition. But the big difficulty appears case of R nilpotent singularities, because there is a phenomena that we call with Daniel Panassolo jumping situation. That is, you pass in a natural way from a nilpotent monomial ZY to a nilpotent monomial YZ, and apparently you have the same situation. So it is like a circle, and you have to control the situation. But with this, you lose the maximal contact. In general, you are working with a guide, geometrical guide, like a surface Z equal to 0. You are controlling these two, or like that, but you control, and it do like that, click, and you lose all your control. And in order to control this, we have been forced to look inside the Newton polyhedra, not in the frontier. To go to look for a kernel which is inside, for normal forms that you can write in two ways, and one of the part is an inner kernel. This inner kernel is each time more sharp, and so you can control like that.
It's not CRD over DZ.
No, this is the nilpotent monomial. The first one is SID Y, like a nilpotent Jordan block. SID Y, and after Y SID. It is you change your nilpotent monomial. If you have a matrix, you have 0, 0, 0, 0, one here and one here. Do like that. It is my time. Do I have 5 minutes? Because of the interruption, so.
Yes, interesting from you.
Okay. I have said 16, so you know. Just to convince yourselves that this situation exists. In the case of a family, not to do the solution, which is very long and technical, but to convince yourself that this situation exists. Take that vector field, which is a family. In red color, we have the R nilpotent monomial. We do a blowing up of points in the directions, which is the blue arrow, and also Z equal to 0 controls in a natural way. The situation more or less repeat after you have done M blowing ups. And then you have the new expression which is there. Say that the red monomial you can see there is a transition monomial. So X plus Y changes the direction where you are looking. And then you do another blowing up more in the natural direction, and you get the red R nilpotent monomial interchanged, twisted, and you are lost. This is, in these situations, is where we have to look to this inner kernel, and it is too complicated to put the right definition, but anyway, I can say that the result is true. Okay, this is all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So any comment and question? So nobody. Thank Thank you very much.